Hello, history enthusiasts, time travelers, and knowledge seekers. Welcome to another journey back in time here on Backdrop History. Introduction. The Trojan War, an epic conflict that unfolded in the Late Bronze Age, remains one of the most captivating tales in Greek mythology and ancient literature. This account aims to explore the fascinating interplay between myth and reality surrounding the Trojan War, examining the historical context, archaeological evidence, and the literary sources that have shaped our understanding of this legendary conflict. Chapter 1: Historical Context. To understand the events of the Trojan War, it is crucial to examine the historical context in which it took place. The Late Bronze Age, spanning approximately from 1600 to 1200 BCE, was a period of great significance in the eastern Mediterranean region. During this time, powerful civilizations emerged, shaping the political, social, and economic landscape of the region. One of the key players in the Late Bronze Age was Mycenae, a civilization centered in mainland Greece. The Mycenaeans were a warrior society known for their sophisticated military infrastructure and palatial complexes. Their society was hierarchical, with a ruling elite controlling vast territories and resources. Mycenae itself, along with other major centers such as Pylos and Tiryns, was characterized by monumental architecture, extensive fortifications, and intricate burial practices. Mycenaean civilization flourished through maritime trade networks, connecting the Aegean with regions as far-reaching as Egypt, Cyprus, and the Levant. Their seafaring prowess enabled them to establish commercial relationships and diplomatic ties with other powerful states of the era. The wealth accumulated through trade bolstered their influence and contributed to the development of a sophisticated material culture. In addition to Mycenae, the Hittite Empire in Anatolia, modern-day Turkey, played a prominent role in the Late Bronze Age. The Hittites were renowned for their military might and organizational skills. They constructed an extensive network of fortifications, effectively controlling central Anatolia and exerting their influence on neighboring territories. The Hittites engaged in diplomatic endeavors, negotiating treaties and alliances with various city-states and kingdoms. Their administrative records, written in cuneiform on clay tablets, provide invaluable insights into the political and social dynamics of the time. These texts reveal interactions with other regional powers, including Mycenae, and shed light on the complex relationships between states in the eastern Mediterranean. The Late Bronze Age witnessed a vibrant exchange of goods, ideas, and cultural influences. Mycenaean pottery, adorned with distinctive designs and motifs, found its way to distant lands, while imported goods from Egypt and the Near East adorned the palaces of Mycenae. The circulation of luxury items, such as precious metals, exotic materials, and finely crafted artworks, reflected the interconnectedness of these civilizations and the wealth they amassed. However, alongside the flourishing trade and diplomatic interactions, conflicts were not uncommon during this period. The competition for resources, territorial disputes, and ideological differences occasionally led to hostilities between neighboring states. These conflicts often played out through military campaigns and sieges, which could result in the destruction of cities and the redistribution of power. It is within this intricate tapestry of political alliances, trade networks, and occasional conflicts that the Trojan War unfolded. The abduction of Helen, the wife of Menelaus, by Paris of Troy ignited a chain of events that embroiled Mycenae and other Greek city-states in a protracted and devastating conflict. The Trojan War, whether myth or reality, serves as a lens through which we can explore the intricacies of Late Bronze Age civilizations and the complexities of their interactions. Chapter 2: Origins of the Myth. The Trojan War, as we know it today, finds its origins in Greek mythology, a rich tapestry of stories passed down through generations. The epic conflict, immortalized in Homer's Iliad and other ancient sources, revolves around the abduction of Helen, the wife of King Menelaus of Sparta, by Paris, a prince of Troy. This tale of love, betrayal, and revenge serves as the catalyst for the legendary war between the Greeks and the Trojans. In Greek mythology, Helen is often described as the most beautiful woman in the world. Her unparalleled beauty and allure captivated the hearts of many suitors, resulting in a competition for her hand in marriage. Menelaus, the king of Sparta, emerged victorious, and Helen became his queen. However, her beauty also caught the attention of Paris, a prince of Troy, who, under the influence of Aphrodite, the goddess of love, was persuaded to abduct Helen and bring her to Troy. The abduction of Helen by Paris represents a pivotal moment in the mythological narrative, setting the stage for the epic conflict that would ensue. This act of betrayal not only violated the sacred bonds of marriage and hospitality but also challenged the honor and authority of Menelaus and the Greek city-states. Menelaus, filled with anger and a desire for revenge, rallied the Greek armies under his brother Agamemnon's leadership to embark on a mission to retrieve Helen and punish the Trojans. The story of the abduction of Helen and the ensuing Trojan War was further developed and immortalized by the ancient Greek poet Homer in his epic poem, the Iliad. Composed around the 8th century BCE, the Iliad narrates a series of events during the final year of the Trojan War. It showcases the heroic exploits of Greek warriors, the wrath of Achilles, the strategies of Odysseus, and the tragic fate of Hector, the greatest Trojan warrior. Through vivid descriptions and captivating storytelling, Homer weaves together a tapestry of heroism, honor, and the devastating consequences of war. It is important to note that while the mythological accounts, including Homer's Iliad, provide the foundation for our understanding of the Trojan War, they are not historical records in the conventional sense. The oral tradition through which these stories were transmitted over generations allowed for the incorporation of legendary elements, embellishments, and the infusion of supernatural beings and events. The poetic license exercised by ancient bards and poets enabled them to create a grand narrative that resonated with their audience and conveyed moral and philosophical messages. The origins of the Trojan War myth go beyond the written accounts. The Greeks, like many ancient cultures, had a deep reverence for their past and their ancestral heritage. The mythological narrative surrounding the Trojan War not only entertained but also served as a vehicle for exploring themes of honor, glory, the consequences of human actions, and the capricious nature of the gods. Furthermore, the Trojan War myth was deeply intertwined with the cultural identity of the ancient Greeks. It played a significant role in shaping their collective memory, reinforcing the notion of their heroic past and the enduring struggle between civilization and chaos. The heroes and events of the Trojan War became archetypes in Greek literature and art, serving as models of virtue and moral lessons for generations to come. Chapter 3: The Literary Sources. When exploring the Trojan War, the primary literary sources that provide us with insights into this legendary conflict are the epic poems of Homer, namely the Iliad and the Odyssey. These works, composed around the 8th century BCE, form the cornerstone of ancient Greek literature and offer a window into the mythical past. While these poems provide invaluable narratives and vivid descriptions of the war, it is crucial to approach them with a critical lens, recognizing that they were products of an oral tradition before being transcribed into written form. The Iliad, attributed to Homer, focuses primarily on a particular episode of the Trojan War, specifically the events of the final year of the conflict. The poem spans a brief period, recounting the wrath of Achilles, the most formidable Greek warrior, and his eventual reconciliation with King Agamemnon, the leader of the Greek forces. Through this narrative, Homer explores themes of heroism, honor, fate, and the consequences of human actions during times of war. The Iliad provides detailed accounts of battles, individual duels, and the interactions between gods and mortals, presenting a rich tapestry of characters and events. The Odyssey, also ascribed to Homer, takes a different narrative trajectory. It follows the journey of Odysseus, a Greek hero, as he attempts to return home to Ithaca after the Trojan War. The Odyssey explores the challenges, obstacles, and encounters faced by Odysseus during his 10-year odyssey, offering a glimpse into the mythical world of monsters, gods, and fantastical adventures. While the Odyssey does not focus primarily on the Trojan War itself, it provides important contextual information about the aftermath of the conflict and its impact on the Greek heroes. Both the Iliad and the Odyssey were products of an oral tradition, where bards and poets recited and performed these epic works in various settings, such as public gatherings, festivals, and courts. These oral performances allowed for flexibility and adaptation, giving the storytellers the freedom to incorporate personal interpretations and embellishments, tailoring the narrative to the specific needs and preferences of the audience. This fluidity of the oral tradition explains some variations and discrepancies that exist in different versions of the same myth. The act of transcribing these oral traditions into a written form marked a significant shift in the preservation and dissemination of the Trojan War narrative. It allowed for a more standardized and fixed version of the story to be transmitted across generations, reducing the potential for drastic alterations or changes. However, even in their written form, the Iliad and the Odyssey continued to evolve through subsequent copying and redactions, influenced by the cultural and literary contexts of the time. It is essential to approach the Iliad and the Odyssey as literary creations rather than straightforward historical accounts. While they provide a glimpse into the mythological world and cultural beliefs of the ancient Greeks, they should be understood as imaginative narratives shaped by the poetic artistry of Homer and the influence of the oral tradition. The inclusion of gods, supernatural beings, and fantastic elements adds layers of symbolism, metaphor, and allegory, reflecting the complex relationship between mortals and the divine in Greek mythology. To complement the Homeric epics, other ancient literary works, such as the Epic Cycle, a collection of lost poems, and the tragedians of classical Athens, also touched upon aspects of the Trojan War. These additional sources, though fragmentary or indirectly referenced, contribute to our understanding of the multifaceted nature of the myth and its enduring significance in ancient Greek literature and culture. Chapter 4: Archaeological Evidence. Archaeological excavations have played a crucial role in shedding light on the historical reality behind the myth of the Trojan War. The exploration of key sites, such as Troy, modern-day Hazarlik in Turkey, and Mycenae, has unearthed valuable evidence that allows us to examine the material remains of the past and potentially identify the historical context in which the Trojan War may have taken place. One of the most significant archaeological figures associated with the exploration of Troy is Heinrich Schliemann, a German businessman and amateur archaeologist. In the late 19th century, Schliemann conducted a series of excavations at Hazarlik, inspired by his belief that the mythical city of Troy could be found there. Although criticized for his unscientific methods, Schliemann's work brought attention to the site and initiated a systematic study of Troy's archaeological remains. Schliemann's excavations at Troy revealed multiple layers of settlement, each representing different periods of occupation. Of particular interest was a layer identified as Troy 6-7, which has been associated with the time period traditionally associated with the Trojan War. The identification of this layer as the possible Troy of the Trojan War era has sparked ongoing debate and continues to be a subject of scholarly discussion. Troy 6, dated to the late 13th century BCE, aligns with the general timeframe of the Late Bronze Age and corresponds to the period when the Trojan War is believed to have taken place. The archaeological remains uncovered at Troy 6 include fortification walls, houses, palaces, and various cultural artifacts. The presence of defensive structures suggests that the city was under the threat of external attacks and required protective measures. The excavation of Troy 6 also yielded a treasure trove of artifacts, providing valuable insights into the material culture of the time. Among the discoveries were pottery, weapons, jewelry, tools, and other everyday objects. These artifacts not only shed light on the technological advancements and artistic styles of the period but also offer clues about trade networks, cultural exchanges, and the daily lives of the inhabitants of Troy. In addition to Troy, archaeological investigations at Mycenae, one of the major centers of Mycenaean civilization, have also contributed to our understanding of the Trojan War era. Mycenae, located in mainland Greece, was a prominent city-state and a key player in the Late Bronze Age Aegean world. Its powerful rulers, represented by the legendary figures of Agamemnon and Menelaus, are central to the mythological narrative of the Trojan War. The excavations at Mycenae, led by archaeologists such as Heinrich Schliemann and later by others like Alan Wass and Carl Blegen, revealed a rich architectural and material record. The imposing Lion Gate, the Megaron, the central hall of a palace, and the monumental Tholos tombs are among the remarkable structures unearthed at the site. These discoveries attest to the architectural sophistication and wealth of Mycenaean society. The material culture found at Mycenae provides a glimpse into the world of the Late Bronze Age Aegean. Intricately decorated pottery, including the iconic Mycenaean stirrup jars, finely crafted metalwork, such as gold funerary masks, weapons, and jewelry, showcase the artistic skills and craftsmanship of the Mycenaean civilization. The presence of these artifacts demonstrates their trade connections and cultural exchanges with other civilizations of the time. While archaeological evidence has significantly enriched our understanding of the historical context of the Trojan War, it is important to note that the interpretation of these findings is subject to ongoing debate and revision. The interpretation of Troy as the city of the Trojan War and the identification of specific individuals and events related to the myth remain challenging due to the inherent limitations of the archaeological record. Nevertheless, the archaeological evidence from Troy and Mycenae provides valuable context and tangible remnants of the Late Bronze Age, allowing us to explore the material realities of the time. These excavations offer a glimpse into the built environment, social structures, and material culture of the ancient world, which formed the backdrop for the mythological narratives surrounding the Trojan War. The archaeological discoveries at Troy and Mycenae not only enhance our understanding of the historical context but also contribute to the ongoing dialogue between archaeology and mythology. They remind us that while myths are often rooted in historical events and cultural memory, they undergo transformations over time, incorporating elements of legend and fantasy. The archaeological evidence serves as a tangible anchor, grounding the myths in a historical reality while leaving room for the imaginative aspects of storytelling and cultural interpretation. Chapter 5: The Role of Heinrich Schliemann. Heinrich Schliemann, a German archaeologist, stands as a central figure in the exploration of the ancient city of Troy and its association with the Trojan War. Although Schliemann's methods and practices have been subject to criticism by modern archaeological standards, his discoveries and excavations played a crucial role in shaping our understanding of the Trojan War and its historical context. His passionate pursuit of the mythological past and his unorthodox approach captured the world's imagination and contributed to the popularization of the study of ancient civilizations. Schliemann's interest in the myth of Troy and the Trojan War was sparked by his early exposure to classical literature. He had a deep fascination with ancient Greek mythology and was particularly captivated by the stories recounted in Homer's Iliad and Odyssey. Inspired by these epic poems, Schliemann embarked on a quest to locate the legendary city of Troy, believing that it had a basis in historical reality. In the late 19th century, Schliemann conducted a series of excavations at Hisarlik, a site in modern-day Turkey that he identified as the possible location of Troy. His archaeological investigations, which began in 1870, were characterized by a zealous determination to uncover the truth behind the myth. However, his methods were criticized by contemporary archaeologists for their lack of scientific rigor and for causing irreparable damage to the archaeological record. Despite these criticisms, Schliemann's excavations at Troy yielded significant findings that had a profound impact on the field of archaeology. He uncovered multiple layers of occupation at the site, including one identified as Troy 6-7, which he associated with the time period traditionally associated with the Trojan War. Schliemann's identification of Troy 6-7 as a possible candidate for the city of the Trojan War generated worldwide attention and helped solidify the notion that the myth had a basis in historical events. One of the most iconic discoveries made by Schliemann was the so-called Treasure of Priam, a collection of gold and other precious objects he claimed to have found in the citadel mound of Troy. Although the authenticity and provenance of the treasure have been the subject of debate and skepticism, its visual splendor and association with the legendary Trojan king Priam captured the public's imagination and further fueled interest in the Trojan War. Schliemann's excavations also revealed the remains of defensive walls, buildings, and artifacts that provided valuable insights into the material culture and architectural characteristics of the Late Bronze Age Aegean. Despite the limitations of his methodology, his work established the groundwork for further archaeological investigations at the site, refining our understanding of Troy and its historical significance. It is important to acknowledge that Schliemann's approach to archaeology, characterized by his zealous pursuit of finding specific mythological sites and artifacts, was not in line with modern scientific standards. His methods often involved haphazard excavation techniques, which resulted in the loss of crucial contextual information. This approach, combined with his tendency to make sensational claims and promote himself as a discoverer of great treasures, has been the subject of criticism and controversy. Nevertheless, Schliemann's contributions cannot be dismissed outright. His excavation efforts at Troy brought the ancient city to the attention of the international community and played a pivotal role in popularizing the study of the Trojan War. By challenging the prevailing notion that the tale of Troy was purely mythical, Schliemann stimulated further archaeological research and motivated subsequent scholars to explore the historical reality behind the myth. Chapter 6: Troy, City of Layers. The ancient city of Troy, located at Hazarlik in modern-day Turkey, stands as a testament to the enduring legacy of the Trojan War. Excavations conducted at this site have revealed a series of archaeological layers, each representing different periods of occupation and providing valuable insights into the development, destruction, and rebuilding of the city. One of the most significant layers discovered at Troy is Troy 6, dating to the late 13th century BCE. This period roughly aligns with the time traditionally associated with the Trojan War. The ruins uncovered at Troy 6 provide a glimpse into the material reality of the city during this critical era. The defensive fortifications of Troy 6 reveal the city's strategic importance and its efforts to protect itself from external threats. Thick walls, constructed using a technique known as cyclopean masonry, provided the city with formidable defense against potential attackers. These walls, reinforced with towers, allowed the inhabitants of Troy to withstand sieges and maintain control over their territory. Within the fortified walls, the ruins of houses and palaces offer insights into the daily life and social structures of the city. The architecture of Troy 6 showcases a complex urban layout, with multi-roomed houses and interconnected buildings. The presence of larger structures, potentially representing palaces or administrative centers, suggests the existence of a ruling elite and centralized authority within the city. Archaeological excavations have also unearthed a wealth of cultural artifacts from Troy 6. The material remains provide valuable evidence of the cultural, economic, and artistic achievements of the city. Among the discoveries are pottery vessels, including storage jars, cooking pots, and intricately decorated vessels. These pottery fragments not only serve as indicators of daily life and domestic activities but also reveal the artistic styles and technological advancements of the time. Metal artifacts, such as weapons, tools, and jewelry, highlight the metallurgical skills and craftsmanship of the inhabitants of Troy. These objects, often made of bronze or precious metals, serve as markers of wealth, status, and the trade networks that connected Troy to other regions of the Mediterranean. The presence of such artifacts suggests a flourishing economy and interactions with neighboring cultures. The cultural artifacts found at Troy 6 also provide evidence of the city's engagement with the wider ancient world. Imported goods, including luxury items such as ivory, glass, and pottery from Egypt, Cyprus, and the Near East, indicate the existence of trade networks and cultural exchanges. These connections demonstrate that Troy was not an isolated city but a vibrant participant in the dynamic interactions of the Late Bronze Age Mediterranean. It is important to note that the ruins of Troy 6, while corresponding roughly to the time traditionally associated with the Trojan War, do not provide direct evidence of the specific events described in the mythological narrative. The archaeological record alone cannot confirm the historicity of the Trojan War or the specific individuals and events associated with it. The interpretation of the archaeological remains must be undertaken in conjunction with other sources, such as literary texts and the broader cultural context of the time. Nevertheless, the archaeological layers of Troy, with Troy 6 as a focal point, demonstrate that the city experienced multiple cycles of destruction and rebuilding over time. These layers reveal a city that was resilient, adaptable, and continuously engaged with the changing political and cultural dynamics of the region. Chapter 7: The Hittite Connection. In our quest to understand the historical reality behind the Trojan War, the Hittite connection offers additional insights into the world of the Late Bronze Age and the potential interactions and conflicts in the region. The Hittites, an ancient civilization centered in Anatolia, modern-day Turkey, left behind a valuable textual record that sheds light on the political landscape of the time. The Hittites, known for their advanced military tactics and administrative systems, established a powerful empire with its capital at Hattusa. The discovery and decipherment of Hittite texts, primarily written in cuneiform on clay tablets, have provided a wealth of information about their culture, history, and diplomatic relationships. Within these Hittite texts, references to a city named Walusa emerge, which some scholars identify as Troy. While the references to Walusa are indirect, they hint at interactions and conflicts in the region. For example, in a letter sent by Hittite king Hattusili III to his brother, he mentions a rebellion in Walusa and requests assistance in suppressing it. This reference suggests that Walusa was a significant city with its own political dynamics and potential conflicts during the Late Bronze Age. Another intriguing Hittite text is known as the Tawagalawa letter, which contains correspondence between the Hittite king and a ruler named Tawagalawa. Although the identification of Tawagalawa as a Trojan king is not universally accepted, some scholars propose that this correspondence may reflect diplomatic exchanges between the Hittite Empire and Troy. The text references a dispute over a city and a possible treaty between the two parties, highlighting the potential political entanglements and interactions between Troy and the Hittite Empire. While the Hittite texts do not provide a direct historical account of the Trojan War itself, their mention of Walusa and the interactions between the Hittites and Troy add a new layer to our understanding of the broader political context in the region. They hint at the existence of a city that could be identified with Troy and suggest that the Trojan War was not an isolated conflict but part of a complex web of alliances, rivalries, and power struggles among different polities in the Late Bronze Age. However, it is important to approach these Hittite references with caution and recognize the challenges of interpretation. The Hittite texts are fragmentary, and the identification of Walusa with Troy is a subject of ongoing scholarly debate. The indirect nature of the references and the lack of explicit details make it difficult to draw definitive conclusions about the historical events and characters associated with the Trojan War. Moreover, it is crucial to contextualize the Hittite texts within the broader body of evidence, including archaeological findings and other ancient literary sources. The Hittite records provide valuable glimpses into the political and diplomatic landscape of the Late Bronze Age, but should be viewed as one piece of the puzzle rather than a definitive historical account. Chapter 8: Historicity and Mythology. The question of the historicity of the Trojan War is one that has puzzled scholars and historians for centuries. Determining the veracity of the events described in ancient texts, such as the Iliad, and separating historical elements from legendary embellishments is a complex and challenging task. The lack of explicit contemporary written records directly addressing the Trojan War further complicates the matter. The story of the Trojan War, as presented in ancient texts, including the Iliad attributed to Homer, is undoubtedly a blend of history and mythology. It is important to recognize that the ancient Greeks, like many other ancient cultures, often intertwined historical events with mythological elements and supernatural beings. The lines between historical reality and mythical storytelling were often blurred, and the boundaries between them were fluid. The Iliad, for instance, presents a narrative that revolves around the events of the Trojan War, featuring heroic figures, epic battles, and divine interventions. The poem is renowned for its vivid descriptions, complex characterizations, and exploration of universal themes. While the Iliad provides valuable insights into the cultural and social context of the ancient Greeks, it is crucial to approach it with a critical eye and an understanding of its mythical nature. The lack of explicit contemporary written records specifically addressing the Trojan War has led to debates among scholars about its historical reality. The absence of first-hand accounts from the time of the war makes it difficult to establish a definitive historical narrative. The accounts we have are derived from later sources, including oral traditions that were eventually transcribed into written form. One approach to assessing the historicity of the Trojan War is to examine the convergence of different sources, both literary and archaeological. Archaeological excavations at the site of Troy, as well as other sites in the region, have provided valuable insights into the material culture and historical context of the Late Bronze Age. The archaeological evidence, while not providing direct confirmation of the Trojan War itself, contributes to our understanding of the cultural and social dynamics of the time. The Hittite texts discovered in the ancient Hittite capital of Hattusa have also been examined for their potential relevance to the Trojan War. These texts mention a city named Walusa, which some scholars have identified as Troy. Although the references are indirect and subject to interpretation, they hint at interactions and conflicts in the region during the Late Bronze Age. Another line of inquiry involves the analysis of geographical and topographical details mentioned in the ancient texts. The descriptions of the city of Troy and its surroundings, as well as the journeys of the Greek heroes, have been examined in light of geographical and archaeological evidence. This approach seeks to determine if the narrative aligns with the physical realities of the ancient landscape. Furthermore, comparative studies of mythologies and legends from other cultures have been undertaken to identify potential connections and parallel narratives. The Trojan War story shares similarities with other ancient Near Eastern narratives, such as the Hittite kingship in heaven and the Hurrian Song of Kumarbi. These parallels suggest the possibility of common mythological motifs and shared cultural influences. Chapter 9: The Trojan War in Context. To truly comprehend the Trojan War, it is essential to place it within the broader historical, political, and cultural context of the Late Bronze Age Aegean and Anatolian region. The conflict did not occur in isolation, but rather emerged as a result of complex interactions and interconnections between various actors and motivations. While the abduction of Helen, as described in ancient texts, serves as a central narrative thread, it is crucial to acknowledge the multifaceted nature of the conflict. During the Late Bronze Age, from approximately 1600 to 1200 BCE, the Eastern Mediterranean witnessed the rise of powerful civilizations and city-states. This period was characterized by extensive trade networks, diplomatic relations, and occasional conflicts. The Mycenaean civilization in mainland Greece, with its centers of power such as Mycenae, Pylos, and Tiryns, flourished alongside the Hittite Empire in Anatolia, the New Kingdom of Egypt, and other regional powers. The interplay between these polities created a complex web of political alliances, rivalries, and power dynamics. Economic prosperity, control of key trade routes, access to valuable resources, and the desire for territorial expansion were among the driving forces shaping the geopolitical landscape of the time. In this context, the Trojan War emerged as a culmination of these interwoven political, economic, and cultural factors. While the tale of Helen's abduction by Paris, a prince of Troy, serves as a popular starting point for the Trojan War narrative, it is crucial to recognize that this event alone does not fully capture the complex motivations and interests at play. The abduction of Helen and the subsequent Greek expedition to reclaim her can be seen as catalysts that brought pre-existing tensions and rivalries to the forefront. The Greek forces, under the leadership of King Agamemnon of Mycenae, were comprised of numerous city-states, each with its own agendas and aspirations. The desire to maintain honor, expand influence, assert power, and secure control over strategic territories all played a role in motivating the Greek expedition to Troy. The war represented an opportunity for the Greek leaders to demonstrate their military prowess, establish dominance, and secure their own positions within the complex political landscape of the time. On the other side, the Trojan defenders, led by King Priam and his sons, fought to protect their city, their people, and their way of life. The motives of the Trojans likely extended beyond the preservation of Helen's presence, encompassing concerns of sovereignty, self-defense, and the preservation of their cultural and political autonomy. Moreover, the Trojan War was not solely a clash between the Greeks and the Trojans. It involved various other regional powers and city-states that had their own stakes in the conflict. The Hittite Empire, for instance, played a significant role in the region during this period. While the extent of their involvement and the nature of their relationship with Troy remain subjects of scholarly debate, Hittite texts do hint at interactions and conflicts in the region, suggesting a broader network of alliances and rivalries. Additionally, it is important to recognize that the Trojan War, as portrayed in ancient texts like the Iliad, encompasses a range of characters, events, and episodes that extend beyond the central narrative. The poem presents a vast array of heroes, gods, and mortal interactions, reflecting the diverse interests, values, and beliefs of the ancient Greek society. The involvement of gods and goddesses in the conflict underscores the intricate relationship between mortals and the divine, as well as the importance of religion and mythology in shaping the narrative. Chapter 10: Legacy and Influence. The Trojan War, despite its status as a mythological event, has left an indelible mark on Western literature, art, and culture. Its enduring legacy and profound influence can be seen in the works of playwrights, poets, and artists throughout history. From ancient Greece to modern times, the Trojan War has served as a rich source of inspiration, exploring themes of heroism, honor, fate, and the consequences of war. In ancient Greece, the Trojan War held a central place in cultural and literary expression. The epic poems of Homer, the Iliad, and the Odyssey played a fundamental role in shaping Greek identity and became foundational texts for Western literature. These poems presented a grand and captivating narrative of the Trojan War, capturing the imagination of the Greek audience and laying the groundwork for the subsequent artistic and literary works that would draw upon the Trojan War as a source of inspiration. In the realm of drama, the tragedies of Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides featured characters and themes rooted in the Trojan War. The plays of Aeschylus, such as Agamemnon and the Orestia, explore the aftermath of the war, delving into themes of justice, vengeance, and the consequences of human actions. Sophocles' Ajax and Euripides' The Trojan Women offer powerful examinations of the human cost and tragedy of war. These plays not only entertained audiences but also raised profound moral and philosophical questions that continue to resonate with contemporary audiences. The influence of the Trojan War can also be felt in the works of Roman poets and writers. Virgil's epic poem, the Aeneid, draws upon the mythology of the Trojan War to tell the story of Aeneas, a Trojan hero who becomes the founder of Rome. Virgil's work served as a deliberate homage to the Homeric tradition and helped shape the Roman cultural and literary identity. The Aeneid further contributed to the popularity and endurance of the Trojan War narrative in Western literature. In later centuries, the Trojan War continued to inspire artists, writers, and composers. The Renaissance period saw a resurgence of interest in classical mythology, leading to artistic and literary works that drew upon the Trojan War as a subject matter. Paintings by artists such as Botticelli, Rubens, and Poussin depicted scenes from the Trojan War, capturing the drama and tragedy of the conflict. The stories of the Trojan War also found their way into the works of William Shakespeare, who referenced the war in plays such as Troilus and Cressida and Hamlet. The influence of the Trojan War extends beyond literature and art, permeating various aspects of Western culture. Its themes and motifs have become embedded in our collective consciousness. The concept of the Trojan horse, a deceptive gift that led to the downfall of Troy, has become a metaphor for hidden dangers and deception. The notion of a heroic figure, such as Achilles, and the tragic flaw that ultimately leads to their downfall, has become a recurring archetype in literature and popular culture. The Trojan War also serves as a cautionary tale, reminding us of the devastating consequences of conflict and the complex moral choices faced by individuals during times of war. It invites us to reflect on the human condition, the nature of heroism, and the impact of our actions on ourselves and others. Chapter 11, Conclusion. The Trojan War stands as a testament to the enduring power of myth and its ability to captivate the imagination of people across centuries. While the quest for historical veracity may prove elusive, the cultural significance and lasting impact of the Trojan War cannot be denied. The interplay between myth and reality, when examined through a historical lens, allows us to appreciate the complexities and nuances surrounding this legendary conflict. By delving into the historical context, we gain valuable insights into the Late Bronze Age, a period characterized by the rise of powerful civilizations and intricate networks of political alliances, trade routes, and cultural interactions. The Trojan War emerges as a product of this vibrant world, reflecting the political rivalries, power dynamics, and quest for territorial control that permeated the region. Archaeological excavations at Troy and Mycenae have shed light on the material realities of the time, providing glimpses into the built environment, social structures, and material culture of the ancient world. These discoveries enrich our understanding of the historical context, grounding the myth of the Trojan War in tangible remnants of the past. The literary sources, particularly Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, offer rich narratives and vivid descriptions of the war. Although these works were products of an oral tradition, potentially allowing for embellishments and legendary elements, they serve as invaluable windows into the cultural, social, and psychological landscape of the ancient Greeks. The Hittite connection, as hinted at in the Hittite texts, adds a layer of complexity to our understanding of the broader political dynamics of the region. While the references to Eleusa, potentially Troy, are indirect, they point to interactions and conflicts in the Late Bronze Age Anatolian and Aegean world, suggesting a complex web of alliances, rivalries, and power struggles. the legacy and influence of the Trojan War cannot be overstated. It has permeated Western literature, art, and culture for centuries, serving as a source of inspiration for countless playwrights, poets, and artists. Themes of heroism, honor, fate, and the consequences of war explored in the Trojan War narrative continue to resonate with audiences to this day. The Trojan War has become a symbol of the human condition, a cautionary tale, and a reflection of the timeless truths embedded in mythological storytelling. More information and facts. Part 1: Cultural Significance. The cultural significance of the Trojan War extends far beyond its origins in ancient Greece. It has left an indelible mark on subsequent civilizations, serving as a rich source of inspiration for countless writers, artists, and filmmakers. From ancient Rome to the present day, the enduring influence of the Trojan War can be observed in a wide range of literary, artistic, and cultural productions. In ancient Rome, the impact of the Trojan War is evident in the works of renowned writers such as Virgil, Ovid, and Seneca. Virgil's epic poem, the Aeneid, stands as a testament to the lasting legacy of the Trojan War in Roman culture. The Aeneid, drawing heavily from the mythological narrative of the Trojan War, tells the story of Aeneas, a Trojan hero who becomes the progenitor of the Roman people. Through this connection to the Trojan War, Virgil sought to establish a link between Rome and its illustrious ancient past, forging a sense of cultural and national identity for the Roman Empire. During the medieval period, the Trojan War continued to resonate with audiences, albeit in transformed and adapted forms. In the 12th century, the French poet Benoit de Saint-Maur wrote the Roman de Troie, an epic poem that retold the story of the Trojan War. This work became a source of inspiration for subsequent medieval authors and poets who explored themes of chivalry, courtly love, and moral lessons in their own retellings of the Trojan War. The war's enduring legacy during the Middle Ages demonstrates its continued significance as a vehicle for storytelling and moral instruction. The influence of the Trojan War also persisted during the Renaissance, when ancient Greek and Roman literature experienced a revival. Artists and writers of this period, such as Botticelli, Rubens, and Poussin, turned to the Trojan War as a subject for their artworks. These paintings, known as the Trojan War cycle, depicted scenes from the war and conveyed its themes of heroism, tragedy, and divine intervention. The Renaissance fascination with the Trojan War showcases the ongoing cultural relevance of this epic conflict and its ability to inspire artistic expressions across different historical periods. The 19th and 20th centuries witnessed a resurgence of interest in the Trojan War, with numerous adaptations and reinterpretations in literature, theater, and film. Works such as Heinrich Schliemann's excavation of Troy and subsequent publications sparked a renewed fascination with the ancient city and its legendary war. Writers like Jean Giraudoux, Christopher Marlowe, and Jean Racine reimagined the Trojan War in their plays, offering fresh perspectives and insights into the motivations and dilemmas of the characters involved. In the realm of film, adaptations of the Trojan War abound, ranging from Wolfgang Petersen's Troy to animated films like The Odyssey and Helen of Troy. These cinematic interpretations breathe new life into the ancient narrative, attracting a wide audience and further cementing the cultural significance of the Trojan War. The enduring cultural significance of the Trojan War lies in its ability to resonate with audiences across different historical periods and cultural contexts. Its themes of heroism, honor, fate, love, and the consequences of war transcend time and space. The war serves as a reflection of the human condition, exploring the complexities of human nature, the interplay between mortals and gods, and the profound impact of choices and actions. Moreover, the Trojan War has become a symbol of the power of myth and storytelling in shaping collective identity and cultural heritage. It represents a shared cultural reference point that unites different civilizations and serves as a common thread across diverse artistic and literary traditions. Part 2: Historical context of the Bronze Age collapse. The Trojan War occurred within a tumultuous period known as the Bronze Age collapse, which witnessed the decline and collapse of several major civilizations in the Eastern Mediterranean and Near East. The war, as a part of this larger historical context, raises intriguing questions about its potential role in contributing to or being influenced by the collapse of these civilizations. Examining the broader geopolitical landscape of the time can shed light on the regional dynamics and potential factors that led to the Trojan War. The Bronze Age collapse, which occurred around the 12th century BCE, was a period of significant upheaval and transformation across the Eastern Mediterranean and Near East. It marked the end of the prosperous Late Bronze Age, characterized by the rise of powerful empires and the flourishing of trade networks, diplomatic relations, and cultural exchange. The collapse witnessed the disintegration and abandonment of many urban centers, the disruption of trade routes, and the decline of centralized political authority. The causes of the Bronze Age collapse have been the subject of much debate among scholars. Multiple factors likely contributed to this widespread collapse, including political upheaval, invasions and migrations, climatic changes, and socio-economic disruptions. The collapse of the Hittite Empire in Anatolia, the Mycenaean civilization in Greece, the New Kingdom of Egypt, and other regional powers during this period had far-reaching implications. The Trojan War, occurring within this broader historical context, invites speculation about its relationship to the collapse of civilizations. While it is challenging to establish a direct causal link between the Trojan War and the collapse, the war may have been influenced by the destabilization and regional power shifts that characterized the Bronze Age collapse. One possible interpretation is that the Trojan War was a product of the shifting power dynamics and competition for control of strategic territories and resources in the region. The decline and collapse of major civilizations created a power vacuum, and various city-states and kingdoms sought to assert their authority and expand their influence. The Trojan War could be seen as a reflection of these struggles for dominance, with Troy and the Greek forces vying for control over important trade routes and key political alliances. Furthermore, the Trojan War narrative presents a complex web of alliances and rivalries, involving not only the Greeks and Trojans but also other regional powers. The Hittite texts, though indirect, allude to interactions and conflicts in the Anatolian and Aegean region during the Late Bronze Age. These references suggest the possibility of a broader network of alliances and rivalries, with political and diplomatic considerations at play. It is also worth considering the potential impact of external forces on the collapse of civilizations and the Trojan War. The movements of the enigmatic Sea Peoples, thought to have played a significant role in the Bronze Age collapse, could have had repercussions on the geopolitical landscape of the time. The Sea Peoples, believed to be a coalition of different groups, were associated with waves of migrations, invasions, and disruptions that contributed to the collapse of established civilizations. It is plausible that these events, including the Trojan War, were influenced by the movements and actions of these groups. The climatic changes occurring during the Late Bronze Age, such as droughts and famines, have also been suggested as potential factors in the collapse. These environmental stressors could have destabilized agricultural systems, leading to socio-economic and political disruptions. The consequences of these changes may have contributed to regional conflicts and the Trojan War. Part 3: Oral Tradition and Mythmaking. The role of oral tradition in shaping the narrative of the Trojan War is a fascinating aspect to explore when examining the development and transmission of myths and historical events. Before the advent of written records, oral storytelling served as the primary means of passing down cultural knowledge, traditions, and narratives from one generation to another. The oral tradition played a crucial role in the creation, preservation, and adaptation of the Trojan War narrative, adding layers of complexity and richness to our understanding of how mythologies were formed and perpetuated. Oral tradition, as a mode of transmission, allowed for the flexibility and adaptability of stories over time. The retelling of tales, including the Trojan War narrative, was not limited to a fixed text but rather relied on the memory, creativity, and improvisation of the storyteller. Each storyteller added their own interpretations, embellishments, and variations, ensuring that the stories evolved and adapted to suit the needs, beliefs, and interests of their particular audience and cultural context. The transmission of the Trojan War narrative through oral tradition enabled the incorporation of local traditions, cultural values, and societal norms. Different regions, communities, and even individual storytellers could shape and modify the narrative according to their own perspectives and experiences. This fluidity and adaptability allowed the Trojan War story to resonate with diverse audiences, while also reflecting the particularities of different cultural traditions. It is important to recognize that the oral tradition inherently allows for changes and alterations in the narrative. Memories can be fallible, and each retelling of a story introduces the potential for variations and embellishments. As a result, the Trojan War narrative, like many other myths and legends, underwent gradual transformation and elaboration over time. Each retelling offered an opportunity to add new elements, emphasize different themes, or introduce local cultural motifs, thus contributing to the richness and diversity of the overall tradition. While the oral tradition allowed for the adaptation and evolution of the Trojan War narrative, it also presented challenges in terms of accuracy and consistency. The reliance on memory and the absence of written records meant that the stories could be subject to changes, omissions, or distortions as they were passed down through generations. The storytellers played a crucial role in preserving the integrity of the narrative, but the potential for variations and deviations was inherent in the oral tradition. With the eventual development of writing systems, including the recording of the Trojan War narrative in texts such as the Iliad and the Odyssey, the oral tradition transitioned into a more fixed and standardized form. The written texts provided a level of stability and uniformity to the narrative, allowing for wider dissemination and preservation over time. However, even in written form, the influence of the oral tradition remained evident, as the texts were likely based on earlier oral versions and continued to incorporate elements of oral storytelling techniques. Understanding the role of oral tradition in shaping the narrative of the Trojan War enhances our appreciation of the complexities involved in the formation and transmission of mythologies. It highlights the dynamic nature of mythmaking, the interplay between individual storytellers and their cultural contexts, and the ways in which narratives evolve and adapt to suit changing social, cultural, and historical circumstances. The oral tradition allowed for the fluidity, adaptability, and creative expression that made the Trojan War narrative a living, dynamic, and enduring cultural phenomenon. Part 4: Gender and Women in the Trojan War. While the Trojan War narrative predominantly centers around the male heroes and warriors, there is an increasing interest among scholars and readers alike in examining the roles and perspectives of women in the conflict. The stories of female characters such as Helen, Andromache, Hecuba, and the Amazons offer valuable insights into the agency, power dynamics, and representation of women in the ancient world. Exploring the gender dynamics within the context of the Trojan War provides a nuanced understanding of ancient society and its treatment of women. One of the central figures in the Trojan War narrative is Helen of Troy. Her abduction by Paris serves as the catalyst for the conflict, sparking a war of immense proportions. Helen's role has often been debated, with questions raised about her agency and the extent of her responsibility in the war. While her actions are portrayed as the cause of the conflict, it is important to examine the broader societal context and the limited agency women had in making decisions that affected the course of events. Helen's character also raises questions about the objectification of women and their treatment as prizes to be won or lost in the power struggles of men. The Trojan War narrative offers glimpses into the lives and experiences of other women as well. Andromache, the wife of Hector, provides a perspective on the impact of war on families and the personal tragedies that unfold amidst the conflict. Her anguish and grief as she witnesses the death of her husband and the loss of her son humanize the consequences of war and shed light on the emotional toll it takes on individuals and communities. Hecuba, the Queen of Troy, also plays a significant role in the Trojan War narrative. Her struggles, both as a leader and as a mother, offer insights into the challenges faced by women in positions of power during times of war. Hecuba's character exemplifies the strength, resilience, and political acumen required to navigate the complex web of alliances and conflicts. The portrayal of the Amazons, a legendary group of warrior women, adds another layer to the gender dynamics within the Trojan War. These fierce and independent women challenge traditional gender roles and notions of female power. The presence of the Amazons in the narrative highlights the existence of alternative models of female agency and warriors in the ancient world, pushing back against the conventional expectations of women's roles. Analyzing the gender dynamics within the context of the Trojan War offers a nuanced understanding of ancient society and its treatment of women. It reveals the constraints and limitations placed on women in terms of their agency, decision-making power, and social roles. The war becomes a backdrop against which the dynamics of power, patriarchy, and the intersections of gender and warfare can be explored. Moreover, examining the representation of women in the Trojan War narrative allows for a critical analysis of ancient literary and cultural depictions of female characters. It invites us to question the biases, stereotypes, and cultural norms that may have influenced these portrayals, shedding light on the complexities of ancient gender relations and the intersections of mythology and societal values. In recent years, there has been a growing interest in reimagining the Trojan War narrative from a feminist perspective. Authors, playwrights, and artists have sought to amplify the voices and experiences of women in the conflict, giving them agency, complexity, and a more central role in the storytelling. These reinterpretations offer alternative narratives that challenge traditional gender norms and highlight the often overlooked contributions and perspectives of women in ancient history. Part 5: Influence of the Trojan War on Political and Nationalistic Movements. The story of the Trojan War has not only captivated the realms of literature, art, and culture but has also been appropriated and utilized by political and nationalist movements throughout history. The epic conflict has been instrumentalized to construct a sense of identity, heritage, or legitimacy, showcasing the enduring power of ancient narratives in shaping collective identities. One notable example of the appropriation of the Trojan War is found in ancient Rome. The Romans, who traced their origins to the legendary hero Aeneas, sought to establish a connection between their city and the illustrious ancient past of Troy. The Roman poet Virgil's epic poem, the Aeneid, played a significant role in solidifying this connection. The Aeneid presents Aeneas as a hero who escaped the fall of Troy and went on to found Rome, thus positioning Rome as the rightful inheritor of Trojan legacy and connecting it to the glory and cultural heritage of the ancient world. During the Renaissance period, when the fascination with classical antiquity resurfaced, the Trojan War once again became a subject of interest for political and nationalist purposes. European powers, such as France and England, drew parallels between their own conflicts and the Trojan War, presenting themselves as inheritors of the heroic traditions of ancient Greece and Rome. This association served to legitimize their ambitions, valorize their actions, and reinforce their sense of national identity. In the context of the 19th and 20th centuries, the story of the Trojan War continued to be appropriated by nationalist movements seeking to foster a sense of unity and national pride. For example, during the Greek War of Independence against the Ottoman Empire in the 19th century, the symbolism of the Trojan War was evoked to rally support for the cause of independence. The Greeks drew parallels between their struggle against the Ottoman occupiers and the legendary defense of Troy against external aggressors, presenting themselves as the rightful inheritors of the heroic spirit of the ancient Greeks. Similarly, in Nazi Germany, the myth of Aryan descent and the association of the Germanic people with ancient Greece and Troy were used to propagate an ideology of racial superiority. The Nazis drew on the mythological narratives to construct a distorted sense of identity and to legitimize their expansionist policies. This egregious misuse of the Trojan War narrative demonstrates how ancient myths and legends can be manipulated for political ends, distorting historical truth and perpetuating harmful ideologies. Beyond political and nationalist movements, the Trojan War has also found resonance in regional and ethnic struggles. In Turkey, the site of ancient Troy, the narrative of the Trojan War has been used to foster a sense of cultural heritage and to promote tourism. The story of the war has become an important part of the country's national narrative, with the ancient city of Troy serving as a symbol of pride and connection to the country's rich historical legacy. Analyzing how the Trojan War has been appropriated and instrumentalized in different historical periods and cultural contexts adds another layer of complexity to its legacy. It reveals how ancient narratives can be selectively interpreted and manipulated to serve particular political, nationalist, or cultural agendas. The Trojan War's enduring power lies in its ability to be adapted and molded to fit different historical, cultural, and political circumstances. It is important, however, to approach such appropriations critically and to separate the historical reality from the ideological interpretations. While the Trojan War may have influenced various political and nationalist movements, it is crucial to recognize that these uses often involve selective interpretations and distortions of history. The Trojan War's influence on such movements highlights the enduring power of ancient narratives in shaping collective identities, but it also raises important questions about the ethical use and interpretation of historical and mythological sources. In conclusion, the story of the Trojan War has at times been appropriated and employed by political and nationalist movements to construct a sense of identity, heritage, or legitimacy. Examples can be found throughout history, from ancient Rome to the Renaissance and more recent contexts. The Trojan War has been invoked to legitimize claims to power, reinforce national pride, and establish connections to ancient civilizations. The Nazi ideology, for instance, distorted the Trojan War narrative to support their racial superiority beliefs. These instances demonstrate the complex and sometimes troubling ways in which ancient narratives can be used for political ends. However, it is important to approach these appropriations with caution and critical analysis. While the Trojan War narrative has undoubtedly influenced political and nationalist movements, it is crucial to distinguish between historical reality and ideological interpretations. The diverse and adaptable nature of the Trojan War story allows for its exploitation and manipulation to fit specific agendas. Therefore, it is essential to engage with historical and mythological sources responsibly and to maintain a rigorous approach to separate fact from fiction. We've now reached the end of our journey today. Thank you for letting the tales of old be your backdrop, and remember, history isn't just about the past, it's about understanding our present and shaping our future.